Good morning. It's Friday, August 8th. I'm meteorologist Andrew Pritchard taking a look at your Canadian prairie weather story. We've got storm clusters that continue to roll through the region with this very active jet stream pattern. A really well-defined area of low pressure spinning overhead right now. We've got another one lined up here over the next 7 days. This active pattern rolls on. A lot of heavy rainfall forecast across not just the prairie, but where we've had these fires ongoing north of the prairie. Really good news there as we continue to mitigate the fire risk to areas north of the prairies here. This active pattern also going to bring these autumn-like temperature swings. You know, autumn might be a little bit of a stretch there, but just getting into this pattern where we have temperature variation, some fluctuations across the area. So some summer-like warmth to be sure, but we see these fronts pass through, knocking temperatures down at times into the upper teens and lower 20s. Let's look at the last 7 days of total precipitation. Again, the prairies here on the top left, we're talking about an inch or so in the Calgary area, parts of southwestern Saskatchewan here picking up nearly 3 inches, some locally heavier amounts there. So good news as we finally brought some precipitation into those areas. A lot of southeastern Alberta is what I was trying to say there, remained dry over the last 7 days. I know it's southeast Saskatchewan, southeast Alberta, southwestern Saskatchewan. My brain having a case of the Fridays here on the drier side. And then as forecast, southern Manitoba, a bit on the drier side over the last 7 days as well. But we've got a big storm cluster moving through that area right now. You see it on the satellite picture here, and we've got additional rainfall chances running through the region over the next 7 to 14 days. So again, big storm system here. You see the counterclockwise swirl. This is our well-defined area of low pressure. The center of that kind of right over the Alberta, Saskatchewan, Montana borders there, but a big thunderstorm cluster blew up across the Dakotas, far southern portions of the prairie here running through southeast Saskatchewan into southern Manitoba over the last, 6 to 12 hours or so. We'll flip over, we'll look at the radar here. Again, this turned into a nice, what we call bow echo. You just see this literal bowing line of thunderstorms. These can bring some strong winds with them. We saw severe thunderstorm warnings here from southern portions of Manitoba down into Minnesota. I would imagine here in the Winnipeg area, if I go ahead and roll this back, you can see the time in the upper left. So this starts at about 3:30 a.m. Central Time. We had some thunderstorms in the Saskatoon area, some showers back here towards Calgary, far southern portions of Alberta. But again, this big cluster of storms, a couple of bowing segments here as we went through the early morning hours. We got to about sunrise here, and you saw kind of this northward surging component, little bow here develop and move into the Winnipeg area. So this is about 5 a.m., getting into 6 o'clock here, 6 a.m., to about 7 a.m. And this is when you start to see kind of the more well-defined line here on the north side of that. So I was going to say here, kind of queuing up to say Winnipeg down here into far southern, southeastern portions of Manitoba. Wonder if you had a nice little shelf cloud as this line of storms moved into the area. If you got that here, I would love to see that on social media. So at any rate, big thunderstorm cluster moving through some areas that we really needed to get some rainfall. And as we go through the forecast here, I'll show you we've got more chances for additional rainfall across these areas. Now, I was going back looking for a couple of things. First of all, checking on some of the smoke. You can see some of the fires here we have across eastern Manitoba, getting into western portions of Ontario, and the smoke plume kind of being lifted north and then eastward from that. We've seen a lot of that across portions of the Great Lakes, but a couple other things kind of jumped out at me as I was watching this, and this is going all the way back to the 5th of August. So today's the 8th. This takes us all the way back to, that would make that be Tuesday afternoon and evening. We'll take it on into, this would be, I want to get to Wednesday. You see the sun come up here, and what I'm getting at is these areas of low pressure, this active pattern that keeps on bringing thunderstorms to the region. So this is, if I walk you back to the 5th, you see these thunderstorm clusters here, this area of developing low pressure. You can kind of see the clockwise swirl there. The reason I'm skipping over the 6th or the 5th here, kind of quickly is because the satellite was cutting in and out for some reason. Got a clean loop here as we go through the 6th for the most part. This is your Wednesday. You see that spiraling area of low pressure moving through Manitoba into Ontario. We get to the afternoon hours, you see those big thunderstorms blow up there, bringing some heavy rainfall to some localized areas. We move through the day on the 7th. This was yesterday. We'll get to sunrise here. You see these big thunderstorms ongoing across Montana into North Dakota. Another big area of low pressure moving into Western Canada. You see the clockwise swirl once again, and it's out ahead of that. that we see these thunderstorms develop during the afternoon and evening hours on Thursday, and they really erupt right here along the U.S.-Canada border there, with the borders of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and North Dakota, getting into Montana and Minnesota. Really a big area of low pressure where, again, you got this cold front out ahead of that, tapping into the hot, muggy air in advance of that storm system. We blew up that big thunderstorm cluster. If I freeze it right here at sunset, so the sun is setting over here on the left side of the image. It's becoming, darkness over on the right side. This would be east and this would be west, but the sun is shining from the west on top of these big, thunderstorm complexes. But you see these kind of bubbly spots here where we got shadows on the center of each of these individual thunderstorms. These are overshooting tops. So these thunderstorms, the updrafts surge up, they hit the top of our troposphere, the level of the atmosphere where our weather, exists, and they have such upward force. These updrafts are so strong that they're able to punch through that top layer, kind of bubble up in there, and then kind of settle back down. So these are kind of the center of these thunderstorms here, where you got these overshooting tops. It's just indicative of extremely strong updrafts. A lot of instability being unleashed here with these summertime environments. Again, it's hot, muggy. That is thunderstorm fuel. So we talked about this a bit in our forecast last week, just having a lot of instability here. This is a pattern that's going to be prime for these thunderstorms and at times some severe weather. The smoke now is going to be clearing out temporarily. So this area of low pressure pushes the smoke east, but then it also wraps some of that back around the backside. So as we head through the weekend, at times there's going to be some issues with that smoke. As long as we got the fires, we're going to see the smoke at times blowing through the area, reducing air quality. Now, the good news is we've seen a big reduction in our fire danger across the prairies, across, all of Canada. If I can kind of just compare the graphic I showed you last Friday, August 1st, is on the left, and then the map from today, Friday, August 8th, is on the right. So the prairie here all the way down to near zero with our current fire weather risk, and then the areas that have really been seeing the big issues are kind of going down from that extreme level to kind of a more moderate to even low in some cases here as we get heavy rain across these areas. Same thing with our current hotspots. We still do have plenty of them, especially across northern portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. But you see left to right, the map from a week ago over on the left, a lot more of those. We've seen a reduction over the last week. So good news there is we continue to kind of mitigate the fire situation with this very active pattern that continues overhead. So this is the just quick snapshot of the radar right now. Again, rain continuing to fall in Winnipeg. Got those showers and storms in the Saskatoon area as well, kind of moving north of that area. But then up and down Alberta here, we've got showers as well. So a big spiraling area of low pressure overhead. Warmer in the east, cooler in the west right now. That's very typical of our storm systems. They draw that warm, humid air northward in advance of that. Temperatures right now in, southern portions of Manitoba near 20 degrees, where we got those thunderstorms moving through. And then on the backside of the storm system, where the cooler air comes filtering in out of the north, those temperatures in the lower teens. Calgary right around 11 degrees, Edmonton probably around 15, 16 degrees, 11, 12 degrees in far southern portions of Alberta as well. We'll get into kind of the forecast portion of this video now as we kind of talk about the near term, that being the ongoing thunderstorm complex that should decay as it moves into Ontario here this morning. The area of low pressure continues to spin overhead though, and we're going to look for a renewed thunderstorm development through the day across portions of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Showers moving out of Alberta as we head through the day today, going to kind of dry out as we head into our Saturday across Alberta, and then a drier Sunday across essentially the entire prairie as we're kind of in a lull between storm systems, still keeping clouds and showers across areas north of Highway 16 as we continue to again, keep things cooler and wetter in some of the areas that have been, literally burning over the last couple of weeks. As a resurgence of the fires, we're going to kind of push those back here with the current weather pattern being cooler and wetter overhead. Your forecast precipitation through the next, 4 days. This takes us through midday Monday, August 11th. Heavy precipitation where we got those ongoing showers and storms. And we look for additional showers and storms today into the day tomorrow. So Saskatchewan and Manitoba, you're on the wetter side, and the rain pulling away from Alberta for the most part over the next 24 hours. You'll see that lull here as we head through the weekend. Looking at the same thing, this is total forecast precipitation through midday Monday from the European model. Again, heaviest across central Saskatchewan into central and southern portions of Manitoba. Now, as I tack on the next 2 weeks, this takes us through August 22nd. A lot more to come piling on in some of the areas that are seeing heavy rain over the next weekend, over the weekend. That's what I'm trying to say there. And then some areas here where we, again, Alberta, the precipitation tapering off for the next 24 hours, but we got more chances to come as we run through the next 2 weeks. Taking a look at it from a probability standpoint here, this is the probability of picking up an inch or more of total rain over that same time period. The next 2 weeks through August 22nd, we're talking 90 to 95% across almost the entirety of the prairie. The lower spot here where we're going to be a bit drier, or at least the odds of being drier are higher, is going to be across southern Alberta, far southern Alberta, and then far southern Saskatchewan, and then up in towards the Peace River and Grand Prairie area. It could be a little drier there in kind of northwestern portions of Alberta, but by and large, the active pattern continues to roll on. This is looking for heavy rainfall pockets. This is your probability of 2 inches or more through August 22nd. And again, central Saskatchewan down into central and southern Manitoba, we're talking about a 60 to 80, in some cases here, getting north of 90% probability of picking up 2 inches or more of total rainfall. And then across, from Calgary to Edmonton, we're still talking about a 30 to maybe 40% probability of picking up 2 inches or more. So this is a very active pattern over the next 2 weeks with a lot of opportunities, not just for rain, but some pockets of heavy rainfall and at times some severe weather as well across the prairies. So this is really, if you wanted to draw up a very active stormy pattern across the prairies, this is what you would draw up. Now, where is it dry in a pattern like this? The western third of the United States, where we got the ridge parked here across the western third of the U.S. We're going to have the jet stream rolling over the top of that ridge, bringing thunderstorms to, again, as I've mentioned, it's not just the prairies, of Canada that are very active and stormy right now. This pattern rolls down through much of the Corn Belt, where it's been an ideal growing season as well. So where you see white on that map is where it's very stormy, and that is the case from Western Canada down through the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and much of the Corn Belt. Now, the reason for that, again, big areas of low pressure rolling through this region this time of year is going to be tapping into a lot of thunderstorm fuel. There's a lot of moisture for a big upper level trough to tap into. And again, this one rolls out of here through the weekend, but is not the only one. We've got another trough that dips down in here as we get into the August 14th and 15th time frame, kind of late week into next weekend. And this is, I mentioned the active pattern rolls on in our last week's forecast update, but the forecast over the last 7 days has taken it a step further. This is not just, an active pattern where we've got the window of opportunity. This is a window of opportunity for heavy rainfall across Western Canada. And this rolls on through next weekend into the early part of next week. So all the way through August 20th through the 22nd. Even at this point, we see the ridge building here across the four corners. Pretty tight jet stream flow coming up over the top of that ridge. This could still, even though you don't see a big blue shaded area here, be a pattern that is sending disturbances through the prairie, tapping into that hot, muggy air, bringing chances for storm clusters to the region. All of this is to say the jet stream continues to be very strong, very active overhead across the prairie provinces. If you were going to draw up a very active stormy pattern, that's what you do. It's hot, it's muggy. Let's bring in some jet stream, flow to bring in these storm systems to create additional lift. And you get a 2-week precipitation forecast that looks like this. And this is the European ensemble forecast. Week 1 on the left, week 2 on the right. Week 1, very stormy, anomalously, high precipitation. And then even as you get into week 2, that's a pretty good signal there that you see a lot of white and green shading across the region. Again, that's a louder signal than I saw a week ago. So this continues to lean into that persistence idea here, where as long as this pattern's going to remain active with enhanced jet stream flow and an open Gulf with plenty of moisture being drawn northward through the plains into the prairies, it's going to be stormy across the region. So here it is verbatim. I've spent all this time here, going through the broader picture, and let me just kind of time it out for you here with the European deterministic forecast here. This is showing you the forecast as we head into this afternoon. We've got chances for showers and storms across the entirety of the prairie through the day today into tonight. As we head into Saturday and Sunday, the risk for showers and storms moves east. So Alberta, you'll be probably dry Saturday and Sunday, and much of you. Saskatchewan and Manitoba, cloudier with rain chances continuing. This is what it looks like here Sunday afternoon and evening. This would be as we get into Monday, a bit drier over the back half of the weekend into the early part of next week. That next area of low pressure forecast to dip into the area August 14th and 15th. I mentioned there, late week into the weekend, bringing more in the way of organized precipitation back to the region. This would again be tapping into, a summer air mass there. The risk for severe thunderstorms would likely be there. And then this area of low pressure continues to kind of spin overhead, bringing additional disturbances around the base of it. Renewed chances for thunderstorm clusters. I'm all the way into August 19th now, and it's not changing. You see these green blobs blowing up over the prairie. These are all thunderstorm clusters associated with jet stream flow rolling over the top of the ridge to the south, tapping into the warm and humid air out in advance of them. And all the way through Friday, August 22nd, 2 weeks from now, we may still be talking about this active pattern. Now, as I walk it back from precipitation, shift over to temperatures just briefly here. If we're going to be active like this, we're going to have temperature variations across the region. We simply can't have strong jet stream flow directly overhead with routine thunderstorm chances and have prolonged excessive heat. It's just not going to match up like that. So with these storm systems rolling through the area, we're going to keep that prolonged excessive heat well south of the prairie, and we're going to have some fluctuations in our temperatures here. I mentioned autumn-like. Not necessarily going to feel like fall out there, but these temperature fluctuations, they certainly start getting me thinking about fall as we get away from kind of a stagnant hot pattern into one that's got some variety here. And again, I say stagnant and hot, and we never really even tapped into that across the prairie. I would argue that we have not really had a big heat wave across the area that's lasted for that 5 to 7 or more time frame. 5 to 7 days is what I'm trying to get at. Calgary, this is what I'm talking about. 18 for the high today, up to 24 Sunday and Monday, back down to 17 by the time we get to Thursday, August 14th and 15th. You just see we get these periods of warmer weather with temperatures in the middle to maybe upper 20s at times, and then they get knocked back into the upper teens to the lower 20s. This is what it looks like in Saskatoon, Regina. We'll finish up here in Winnipeg. Have a wonderful weekend. Talk to you again next week.